Salam. Welcome to part 9 of the Scrolls of Ezekiel. Tonight, we will be reading out of chapters 26 through 28, Abba willing. We'll get through all of it, and we will be talking about Tyre and in the physical and the prophetic sense, the connections in the scriptures with all things, and just praying that Abba leads us, gives us understanding, and I encourage each of you to read along with us, take notes, and let's dive in. I'm going to give a brief introduction here. So as we discussed last week, chapters 25 through 32 can be titled as the end of the road for the Most High's enemy. So all of the nations surrounding Israel are the nations that we have been speaking of since last week. We'll be talking about them this week and next week in part 10 as well. Hopefully we'll get through the last four. Well, possibly not. We have 4 more chapters in this portion after tonight. So again, as I mentioned last week, that judgment may begin with the Most High's household, but those who oppose the Most High's people will get what's coming to them. Their judgment will be greater. Although, of course, if you are in covenant with the Most High, you know the truth, and you come out of it, there is a greater consequence in that sense as well. So the nations the Most High is addressing here were historically the geographical surrounding nations of Israel. So tonight we are focusing on Tyre, and Sidon, which are coastland nations. And if you followed along with the Isaiah studies, you know that there was a connection made there that the coastlands were the scattered nations of Israel. When the Most High refers to the coastlands in the book of Isaiah, he's referring to the scattered people. So just something to keep in mind as we move through these verses tonight. And so who were the people of Tyre? The people of Tyre were Canaanites, who were also known as Phoenicians. So as Canaanites, the people of Tyre were originally Canaanites, a cultural group that spoke a Canaanite language and worshipped Canaanite gods. So the Canaanite gods were, among the Canaanite gods, we have Baal, we have the goddess Ashtaroth, which here she looks a little bit more, how do I say, PG than other statues or pictures that we've seen in the past. We've seen there's this one statue. I didn't include it tonight, but there's this one statue where, it's like a literal hole in the nether region. So ultimately, gods of sex, gods of sacrifice, gods of just detestable things to the Father. So again, as Phoenicians, the people of Tyre were Phoenicians, a name given to the region by the Greeks from their word for purple. The Phoenicians were seafarers who built cities along the eastern Mediterranean coast and established colonies in North Africa and as far west as Spain. And the other name for them were Tyrians. So obviously from the name Tyre. The people of Tyre were also known as Tyrians and were the dominant power in the Levant and the Mediterranean. That's just like the coastland areas. They were known for their mastery of navigation and trade throughout the Mediterranean Sea. They were purple dye workers, and they were known for their work of extracting purple dye from the murex shellfish. And this dye was highly valued and reserved for royalty or the nobility. And we're going to see a lot of Revelation tonight, Revelation 18 in particular, as it's, the one that speaks about, that gives profound connections to these chapters. So the city of Tyre is mentioned in the Bible in a number of ways. including in the book of Joshua, the book of 2 Samuel, and 1 Kings. We're going to read some of these precepts tonight, and also by Messiah himself. In the book of Joshua, Tyre is listed as one of the cities that were part of the inheritance of the tribe of Asher. So the tribe of Asher dwelt in Tyre. In 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, and even in 2 Chronicles, we see that Tyre provided supplies, stonemasons, carpenters, laborers, artisans to construct a temple in Jerusalem during Solomon's reign. And also for King David, for the building of King David's palace. I believe it was through King Hiram, if I'm not mistaken. That was the king in Tyre at the time. And then by Messiah himself in the book of Matthew and in Luke, he mentions Tyre as an example of an unrepentant city. Okay, so with that being said, we'll go ahead and jump into the reading for tonight. Well, at least chapter 26 to start. Okay, so Yasmin, if you are ready, you can go ahead and read. Go ahead and read through the entirety of the chapter.
Okay.
Thank you.
And it came to pass in the 11th year, on the first day of the month, that the word of the Most High came to me, saying, Son of man, because Tyre had said against Jerusalem, Aha, she is broken, who was the gateway of the peoples. Now she turned over to me, and I shall be filled. She is laid waste. Therefore, thus says the Most High, Elohim, behold, I am against you, O Tyre, and will cause many nations to come up against you, as the sea causes its waves to come up. And they shall destroy the walls of Tyre and break down her towers. I will also scrape her dust from her and make her like the top of a rock. It shall be like a place for spreading nets in the midst of the sea. For I have spoken, says the Most High Elohim. It shall be like a plunder for the nations. Also, her daughter villages which are in the field shall be slain by the sword. Then they shall know that I am the Adon. For thus says the Most High Elohim, behold, I will bring against Tyre from the north Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, king of kings, with the horses, with the chariots, with the horsemen, and an army with many people. He will slay with the sword your daughter's villages in the fields. He will heap up sage a mound against you, build a wall against you, and raise a defense against you. He will direct battering rams against your walls. With axes, he will break down your towers. Because of the abundance of his horses, dust will cover you. Your walls will shake at the noise of the horsemen, the wagons, and the chariots when he enters your gates as men enter a city that has been breached. With the hooves of his horses, he will trample all of your streets, and he will slay your people by the sword. And your strong pillars will fall to the ground. They will plunder your riches and pillage your merchandise, and they will break down your walls and destroy your pleasant houses. They will lay down your stones, your timber, and your soil in the midst of the water. And I will put an end to the sound of your songs, and to the sound of your harps shall be heard no more. And I will make you like the top of a rock, and you shall be a place for spreading nets, and you shall never be rebuilt. For the Most High, I, the Most High, have spoken, says the Most High Elohim. Thus says the Most High to Tyre, will the coastlands not shake at the sound of your fall? When the wounded cry, when the slaughter is made in the midst of you? Then all the princesses of the sea will come down from their thrones, lay aside their robes, and take off their embroidered garments, and they will clothe themselves with trembling. They will sit on the ground, tremble every moment, and be astonished at you. They will take up a lamentation for you and say to you, how you have perished, O one inhabited by seafaring men, O Rion city, who was strong at the sea, she and her inhabitants, who caused their terror to be on all her inhabitants. Now the coastlands tremble on the day of your fall. Yes, the coastlands by the sea are troubled at your departure. For thus says the Most High Elohim, when I make you a desolate city, like cities that are not inhabited, when I bring the deep upon you and great waters cover you, I will bring you down with those who descend into the pit, to the people of old. I will make you dwell in the lowest part of earth, in places desolate from antiquity, and will with those who go down to the pit, so that you may never be inhabited. And I shall establish glory in the land of the living, And I will make you a terror, and you shall be no more. Though you are sought for, you will never be found again, says the Most High Elohim.
Oof. Thank you so much. So this is just the beginning of the woes that are being spoken against Tyre. Here in particular, we are speaking, well, the Most High is speaking against the land. So basically, just to continue within the introduction, this is a proclamation against Tyre and its king. And the king of Tyre, as we will see throughout these chapters, is also used as a metaphor for HaSatan, while still incorporating a future blessing. So, as usual, the Most High, through Ezekiel, is addressing a stiff-necked people regarding impending judgment. So these chapters are going to take us into, looking like the throne room of heaven. We're going to read some Enoch as well, because, there's too many connections not to get into that depth of it. So with that being said, let's read the connecting precepts. So when last week I mentioned, and this was with the other nations that were spoken of, where those nations who said against Jerusalem, essentially mocking Jerusalem, we have a connection here in the book of Lamentations. So Lamentations 2:13-17 says, "How shall I console you? To what shall I liken you, O daughter of Jerusalem? What shall I compare with you that I may comfort you, O virgin daughter of Zion? For your ruin is spread as wide as the sea. Who can heal you? Your prophets have seen for you false and deceptive visions. They have not uncovered your iniquity to bring back your captives, but have envisioned for you false prophecies and delusions. All who pass by clap their hands at you. They hiss and shake their heads at the daughter of Jerusalem. Is this the city that is called the perfection of beauty, the joy of the whole earth? All your enemies have opened their mouths against you. They hiss and gnash their teeth. They say, we have swallowed her up. Surely this is the day we have waited for. We have found it. We have seen it. The Adon has done what he purposed. He has fulfilled his word, which he commanded in the days of old. He has thrown down and has not pitied, and he has caused an enemy to rejoice over you. He has exalted the horn of your adversaries. So we are able to deduce here that basically the Most High, while he's now punishing these nations for mocking Israel, he is kind of the one who set it into motion. And we're going to see through Genesis, through Exodus, through Numbers, Leviticus, I have a little bit of everything tonight, that he instructed his people that if they broke his commandments, they were going to be taken over by lands or a people that they did not know. So this is a culmination of all of that in this chapter of Lamentations. We also have Isaiah 23 verses 1-18. I'm not going to read it, but I wanted to just make a reference to it because this chapter 23 of Isaiah is also Isaiah's burden. So if you recall from our studies of the book of Isaiah, I explained how each burden that Isaiah spoke of was basically his prophecy against whether it was Jerusalem, whether it was Tyre in this situation, Egypt, Pharaoh, whoever it was that he was speaking to, through the Most High speaking through him. So this was his burden against Tyre, and it's basically very similar to what Ezekiel was speaking as well. So I just wanted to add that one in as a reference. And as I mentioned in the slides, this is where we see that Asher was received as an inheritance the fortified city. So I'm going to read it. Joshua 19:24 through 31. The fifth lot came out for the tribe of the children of Asher according to their families. And their territory included Helkath, Hali, Beden, Akshaph, Alamelech, Amad, and Mishal. It reached to Mount Carmel westward along the brook Shihor Libnath. It turned toward the sunrise to Beth Dagon, and it reached to Zebulun and to the valley of Jiphthath El, then northward beyond Beth Emek and Nael, bypassing Kabul, which was on the left, including Hebron, Rehob, Hammon, and Cana, as far as Greater Sidon. So we're going to see Sidon later on tonight as well. And the border turned to Ramah and to the fortified city of Tyre. Then the border turned to Hosa and ended at the sea by the region of Aksib. Also, Uma, Aphek, and Rehob were included, 22 cities with their villages. This was the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Asher, according to their families, these cities with their villages. So, of course, we know that there were people of Israel who intermingled with these other nations, went after their gods. So we can see, obviously, because of the fact that they inherited this land and didn't drive out those people, did not allow them to stay and cohabitate with them, that's where the intermingling began and the worship after other gods continued, because we already saw it happening as early as Exodus, even before then, honestly, but as early as Exodus and throughout the rest of the books. All right, so we have some verses that make mention also of Tyre. So this is still in connection with the first few verses of chapter 26. So verse 2 in particular, Joel 3:4 says, "Indeed, what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Sidon, and all the coasts of Philistia? Will you retaliate against me? But if you retaliate against me, swiftly and speedily, I will return your retaliation upon your own head." We know, yes, Yasmin said one wrong decision can change everything. And Yasmin had also said nothing will stop the Most High's wrath and judgment. Absolutely, I agree. So we know that the book of Joel is also it's a prophetic book, but also very apocalyptic in nature, speaking a lot about the end times. So the fact that Tyre and Sidon are being addressed here as well just kind of also opens the way for us to be able to identify that it is speaking of the past time during the prophet's time, but also future prophecies of the apocalypse or the end times. We also have Jeremiah 25:22, and it says, "All the kings of Tyre, all the kings of Sidon, and all the kings of the coastlands which are across the sea." So this is just making a reference once again, coupling these lands together because they were all along the coast. And Zechariah 9:2-4. I just want to make sure. Yes, so we're still verse 2. Exactly, it's all twofold, Liz. Yes, absolutely. So also against Hamath, which borders on it, and against Tyre and Sidon, though they are very wise. For Tyre built herself a tower, heaped up silver like the dust, and gold like the mire of the streets. Behold, the Adon will cast her out. He will destroy her power in the sea, and she will be devoured by fire. We're also going to be speaking about water, about the waters, because there is a lot as it relates to the marine kingdom. I'm not gonna go too in depth because that would be a discussion all on its own. And so we're just gonna scratch the surface just a little bit about that as well. And Liz said what it was will happen. Wait, I'm sorry. What was it will happen. The beginning declares the end. Yes. Yes. Amen. We also have Amos 1, 9 through 10. And it says, thus says the Adon, for 3 transgressions of Tyre and for 4, I will not turn away its punishment, because they delivered up the whole captivity to Edom and did not remember the covenant of brotherhood. But I will send a fire upon the wall of Tyre, which shall devour its palaces. So here we're able to see too, if the tribe of Asher had settled in the land of Tyre and they delivered up the whole captivity to Edom, that means that they turned against their own people. And so that was another reason why the Most High had this wrath, that oncoming wrath against them. And so in the vein of making the connections with the waters, we're gonna get in there in a few minutes. But in Luke 21:25, we see that it says, and there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars, and on the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. And that in particular connects with verse 3 that says, behold, I am against you, O Tyre, and will cause many nations to come up against you, my goodness, as the sea causes its waves to come up. Let me just read verse 4 because I have just one connection with verse 4. And this is in reference to cleansing of contamination. So here it says, and they shall destroy the walls of Tyre and break down her towers. I will also scrape her dust from her and make her like the top of a rock. When I think about rocks, the top of a rock, I think, I don't know, maybe like the top of a mountain. But I have Leviticus 14, 41 through 45. And it says, and he shall cause the house to be scraped inside all around, and the dust that they scrape off, they shall pour out in an unclean place outside the city. And this is in reference to plagues being, well, when people are plagued and they're inside their houses, I believe also mold inside the houses. So these were the instructions that the Israelites were being given in order to cleanse their houses. But as usual, since everything is twofold and it is spiritual, we can think of that also within our own spiritual temple, the temple of the Ruach Kodesh that dwells on the inside of us. So again, let me read it. Then they shall take other stones and put them in the place of those stones, and he shall take other mortar and plaster the house. Now, if the plague comes back and breaks out in the house, after he has taken away the stones, after he has scraped the house, and after it is plastered, then the priest shall come and look, and if the plague has spread in the house and it is an active leprosy in the house, it is unclean. Remember that leprosy represents sin. And he shall break down the house, its stones, its timber, and all the plaster of the house, and he shall carry them outside the city to an unclean place. This, I don't know, for some reason, reminded me also of a video that Liz's husband Carlos showed us one week in our in-person gathering, and it was of the potter and the clay, or the potter and the clay, right? Where the potter is molding a vase, and he's explaining how, and this is something that's in Jeremiah too. I don't know if you've gotten there, Yasmin, in your study of the book, but it's in Jeremiah where the Most High instructs him to mold or to take, I think he tells him to grab a vase and to shatter it, and basically as a metaphor stating how he is able to rebuild the house of Israel even if it gets shattered. So in that video, the man also explains that metaphor, how he sometimes a potter has to, if there's imperfections in the pot, they have to shatter it, melt it all over again, and then remold it so that is that perfect pot that they are able to, use. So I don't know, this just kind of reminded me of that, because when we are unclean, when we're full of sin, the Most High is going to break us down and rebuild us again through our surrender. And that's always the most important thing, is our surrender. Okay, so now we're gonna go into verse 5, and this is the verse that I in reading through it, I found a lot of connections, particularly about the marine kingdom. So, verse 5, it shall be a place for spreading nets in the midst of the sea, for I have spoken, says the Most High Elohim. It shall become a plunder for the nations. And not just this verse, obviously we see verse 3 is also speaking about the sea causing its waves to come up to consume the land. So I actually created a multiverse retrieval for this particular verse itself, because there are a lot of connections. And then I have Enoch as well, I believe. Yeah. All right. So just to jump right in, I have Psalm 69, 1 through 2, and verses 14 and 15 as well. And it says, Save me, O Elohim, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink in deep mire, where there is no standing. I have come into deep waters, where the floods overflow me. Deliver me out of the mire, and let me not sink. Let me be delivered from those who hate me, and out of the deep waters. Let not the flood water overflow me, nor let the deep swallow me up, and let not the pit shut its mouth on me. So we see here that King David is equating like misery and punishment and destruction to drowning and sinking. So he's asking the Most High for help to get him out of those waters. So let's continue to read. So we have also Isaiah 57:20. But the wicked are like the troubled sea when it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. So we see that word mire again over and over again, which is like a filth. Psalm 104, 25 through 26, it says, This great and wide sea in which are innumerable teeming things, living things both small and great, there the ships sail about. There is that Leviathan which you have made to play there. And if you have studied anything, as far as like the book of Job, or well, even Jonah, you see these references to these huge fish that had to do with punishment, or even, destruction. So Leviathan is known as one of those water creatures, huge creatures that come up also as part of in the latter days. But we see him particularly as in the book of Job. We see him in the book of Psalm. And then, yeah, again, here we can make a reference to him. So let me just make sure. Okay, Enoch. Let me go to the book of Enoch. So we have Enoch 54. I'm going to go there now. And I'm just going to read, well, I have verse 7, but I think there's a little bit more. And please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Okay, so, and in those days, so Enoch 54, I'm going to start in verse 7. And in those days shall punishment come from the Most High of spirits, and he would open all the chambers of the waters which are above the heavens, and of the fountains which are beneath the earth. And all the waters shall be joined with the waters. That which is above the heavens is masculine, the water which is beneath the earth is feminine, and they shall destroy all who dwell on the earth, and those who dwell under the ends of the heaven. And when they have recognized their unrighteousness, which they have wrought on the earth, then by these they shall perish. So again, we see the sea above is the firmament, the sea below is the currency, so the time basically. And the waters above can also be seen as the luminary. So if you look up at the sky, obviously the sky is blue, and at night it's dark. You see the stars in the sky, and the association with this is the times that we are living in, and knowing that with that darkness, with the prince of this age, there is going to be punishment. Now, of course, in this book of Enoch, in this particular chapter as well, this is a reference to the flood that was upcoming, and due to the sins of the people after the commingling with the angels. So history repeats itself over and over again. Again, like we saw, the tribe of Asher settled in Tyre and mixed with the people there. So there was sin all over again. And as I mentioned, the father knew that these things were going to happen. He warned the people, and we haven't gotten there yet, but we are going to get into the connections in the Torah, where he gave these warnings, but he foresaw that these things were going to happen, and that is why he is proclaiming this punishment on the people now. All right, so continuing with the theme of the waters, we have Exodus 2:10 as well. And it says, and the children grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So she called his name Moses, saying, because I drew him out of the water. So Moses was drawn out of waters. Obviously, he was put in that water in a basket because his mother was trying to save him. But at the same time, we also understand that because of the fact that he was in there, he could have drowned, he could have perished, but the Most High had saw fit to use the waters to get him to the place that he needed to be, to use him for his glory in the future. So we also have Exodus 14:16, where it says, but lift up your rod and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, and the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. So Moses ended up using the staff given to him by the Most High in order to divide the waters and allow the children of Israel to pass through that sea and make it to the other side. And instantly, as if you know the story, you know that instantly after all of the Israelites had made it onto the dry land, that the waters consumed the Egyptians that were going after the Israelites. All right, so continuing, we also have Isaiah 43:2, which says, when you pass through waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, nor shall the flames scorch you. And here, Isaiah is addressing a people who are walking with the Father and reminding them that when they go through those troubling waters, that he is with them. So it all boils down to, how are you approaching the Father? How are you coming to him? And if you're allowing him to take control even of those situations that could potentially drown you. Psalm 63:1 says, a psalm of David when he was in the wilderness of Judah. O Elohim, O Elohim, you are my Elohim. Early will I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you in a dry and thirsty land where there is no water. And I included this one here because while there is a lot of imagery about the waters and what dwells within the waters, we also know that our Messiah, once he came, he was that living water that we were to drink from. So there's always that opposite theme that the Most High turns around for his glory. I also have a few portions from the book of Jonah, chapters 1 and 2. So I'm going to read verses 1 through 4 of chapter 1 and verse 7, and then verses 1 through 5 and verse 10 of chapter 2. So it says, now the word of the Adon came to Jonah. Oh my goodness, sorry. Let me drink some. Okay. Now the word of the Adon came to Jonah, the son of Amittai, saying, arise, go to Nineveh, that great city, and cry out against it, for their wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah arose to flee to Tarshish from the presence of the Adon. He went to Joppa and found a ship going to Tarshish. So he paid the fare and went down into it to go with them to Tarshish from the presence of the Most High. But the Most High sent out a great wind on the sea, and there was a mighty tempest on the sea, so that the ship was about to be broken up. And they said to one another, come, let us cast lots that we may know for whose cause this trouble has come upon us. So they cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. And then let me read chapter 2. Then Jonah prayed to the Most High, his Elohim, from the fish's belly. So this takes place, and then Jonah gets consumed by the huge fish. And he said, I cry out to the Adon because of my affliction, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. For you cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the floods surrounded me. All your billows and your waves passed over me. Then I said, I have been cast out of your sight, yet I will look again toward your holy temple. The waters surrounded me, even to my soul. The deep closed around me. Weeds were wrapped around my head. So the Most High spoke to the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land. So within Jonah being consumed, so first he's given an instruction, right? He's told to go to Nineveh and to cry out against it, to call the people to repentance, and he runs from that assignment. He runs and he goes to the waters. And in those waters, he ends up being consumed by this great fish, this huge fish. And while he is in, within that consumption, while he's in that fish, he has an encounter essentially with the Most High, to the point where he's taken to repent. And within that repentance, the Most High shows him mercy and instructs the fish to spit him out. So why do I include all of this as well? Well, basically, if you look at this story about Jonah, he ran to water. He ran to the people that that dwell. I think Tarshish, and I should have looked at that, but I believe that Tarshish was also a city that was near. It was within Lebanon, I believe. I've seen it before, and it was within Lebanon, also on the coast near Sidon and Tyre, basically in the opposite direction of Nineveh. And so he ran there, to which Tarshish, if you look at let me see if I can pull it up actually. Hold on, I can go back to this. I believe I've seen before that the name Tarshish has a meaning of like away from the presence, but let me double check. Let's see. I know I had seen it somewhere. Perhaps it wasn't here in let's see. Okay, so maybe not. because I had seen somewhere previously that it was, well, it says breaking, subjection from the root Tarshish, a city in Spain. So yeah, so it was up no, north of Nineveh. But I did read once somewhere that it could be equated as a place that had no presence of the Most High. I'll go back to this later. But ultimately Jonah was separated from the world in the waters. Obviously, he was protected within the belly of the fish, but as we see here, out of the belly of Sheol, I cried, for you cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the flood surrounded me. So he recognizes that the water is an area where the demonic realm is present. So just another point made there. We also have Psalm 119, 176, and it says, I have gone astray like a lost sheep. Seek your servant, for I do not forget your commandments. And ultimately, I included this precept because when you are away from the presence of the Most High, that's where we forget about his commandments. We forget, we go astray like the lost sheep into dry land as well, into dry areas that have none of his presence. Let me go back to verse 5 once again. Yeah, I wanted to make sure because I wrote down all of these notes throughout the week and I should have wrote exactly why I was including that. But so I also have John 21:6, and it says, and he said to them, cast a net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. So they cast and now we're not able to draw it in because of the multitude of fish. And then let me also read Matthew 4:19, and it says, then he said to them, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. So essentially we see here that once Messiah came, he was calling his disciples to be fishers of men, essentially fishing men out of the waters, out of the life of sin. And that's the connection that I wanted to make with these two precepts here, because we see that if you're thinking about the face of the deep, the waters, and the world being without form, the earth was without form and void in the beginning, and there was darkness on the face of the deep. That darkness was within the waters. So our Messiah came to draw us out of the waters and into communion with him once he was on this earth, which was one of the main reasons, of course, or the main reason, of course, why he was sent down from sitting at the right hand of the throne of the Most High. Okay, so I hope all of that made sense. I know it was a lot of precepts. I really just wanted to bring home the point that within the waters is where that darkness dwell, and where, you know, the demonic realm is lurking and active. All right, so now moving on to, oh, I'm sorry if I went too fast. I know it was a lot. Okay, so, all right, going back now to verse 7. Let me continue here. Oh, well, of course, verse 6, all her daughter villages, which are in the fields, shall be slain by the sword. Then they shall know that I am the Most High. This obviously is in respect to the surrounding areas of Tyre. Verse 7, for thus says the Most High Elohim, behold, I will bring against Tyre from the north Nebuchadnezzar. So now we see Nebuchadnezzar once again being used for the glory of the Most High. He was basically one of Abba's puppets. Although he wasn't in covenant with the Father, we know that he had dreams that even Daniel interpreted with messages from the Most High to him. For after he had been after he gained so much power and took over all of these lands, then he was told that he would have a great fall because he had become so prideful. But essentially, he was used here also to be the tool that the Most High used to come against Tyre. So I have connections in Nahum and Jeremiah. So we have Nahum 2, 3-4. And it says, the shields of his mighty men are made red. The valiant men are in scarlet. The chariots come with flaming torches in the day of his preparation, and the spears are brandished. The chariots rage in the streets. They jostle one another in the broad roads. They seem like torches. They run like lightning. So this is in reference to the mighty men being, I think, is in reference to the men of Tyre, because as we said, they were workers of purple, but purple and scarlet can also be equated to being the same color in the scriptures. And so this is who they're referring to here in the book of Nahum. And Liz said, reminds me in a way to Balaam. Yeah. Yes, because I mean, ultimately, as we were speaking about Balaam last week, Balaam was a prophet. I believe he was all over those cities, you know, and just as he had dealings with Moab, I'm sure he probably had dealings with Tyre as well. Okay, so I also have Jeremiah 25:9 and Jeremiah 27:3-6. So Jeremiah 25 says, behold, I will send and take all the families of the north, says the Most High, and Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and will bring them against this land, against its inhabitants, and against these nations all around, and will utterly destroy them and make them an astonishment, a hissing, and perpetual desolations. So again, we see here that now what was happening to the Israelites, where they were being the ones who were being hissed at and all of that. Now he is saying the same of how he was going to use Babylon to do this to Tyre. So it goes on in Jeremiah 27:3-6 that and says, and send them to the king of Edom, the king of Moab, the king of the Ammonites, the king of Tyre, and the king of Sidon by the hand of the messengers who come to Jerusalem to Zedekiah, king of Judah, and command them to say to their masters, thus says the Most High of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, thus you shall say to your masters, I have made the earth, the man and the beast that are on the ground, by my great power and by my outstretched arm, and have given it to whom it seemed proper to me. And now I have given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and the beasts of the field I have also given him to serve him. So all these lands became his, overtaken by him. So with verse 8 says, he will slay the sword your daughters. He will slay with the sword your daughter villages in the fields. He will heap up a siege mound against you, build a wall against you, and raise a defense against you. I'm going to also read verse 9. It says, he will direct his battering rams against your walls, and with his axes, he will break down your towers. So let's read some connections there with verse 8. We have Jeremiah 6:6 and Jeremiah 32:24. And it says, for thus says the Most High of hosts, said, cut down trees and build a mound against Jerusalem. This is the city to be punished. She is full of oppression in her midst. So obviously this is speaking about Jerusalem, but it's the same actions that were going to be taken against Tyre. And then Jeremiah 32:24, look, the siege mounds, they have come to the city to take it, and the city has been given into the hands of the Chaldeans who fight against it because of the sword and famine and pestilence. What you have spoken has happened. There you see it. So this is in reference, I was making the connection here because of the word siege mounds. So we see it here He will heap up a siege mound against you, build a wall against you. So this is acknowledging that this is what ended up taking place. All right, now with verse 9, I have 2 Chronicles 26:15. And it says, and he made devices in Jerusalem invented by skillful men to be on the towers and the corners to shoot arrows and large stones. So his fame spread far and wide, for he was marvelously helped till he became strong. And this is in regards to the battering rams that in verse 9 says that he was going to direct against the walls of Tyre to break down the towers, because it is known that along the coastland, Tyre had a big wall, I guess, as you know, as a fortification to protect the city. So those walls were torn down when they were attacked. All right, so now we have verse 10. No, I don't have anything for verse 10 or 11 because essentially everything is pretty much the same. You know, what was being spoken that would be happening to them. These verses kind of are pretty straightforward. But I do have with verse 12. Oh, Yasmin said, it reminds me of the Mexican border between the US and Mexico. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you guys are aware of the London Bridge and what when the London Bridge was built in the UK. It is said that there were bodies that were placed in the midst of the bridge to kind of hold it as as the foundation. And when the London Bridge was torn down in one of the world wars, they discovered all of these bodies underneath the surface of it. So you can just imagine. Yeah, and probably the Great Wall of China as well. I wouldn't be surprised. And even that wall that's in today's Jerusalem. Who knows? I mean, they could use the dead bodies for those foundations in any of them, right? I'm sorry, my throat is like super scratchy tonight. I don't know why. I think I spoke too much today. All right, so with verse 12, which says, they will plunder your riches and pillage your merchandise. They will break down your walls and destroy your pleasant houses. They will lay your stones, your timber and your soil in the midst of the water. So again, we continue to see this relevance to the water, but we have Habakkuk 1:8 and Amos 5:11. And so Habakkuk says, their horses also are swifter than leopards and more fierce than evening wolves. Their chargers charge ahead. Their cavalry comes from afar. They fly as the eagle that hastens to eat. Just basically making the connection that they would be attacked by a faraway land. Amos 5:11, therefore, because you tread down the poor and take grain taxes from him, though you have built houses of hewn stone, yet you shall not dwell in them. You have planted pleasant vineyards, but you shall not drink wine from them. Because they are being basically told that, you know, everything that they built, they will not be able to enjoy it for themselves. Moving on, we have with verse 13, Isaiah 24 and Jeremiah 25. So I'm gonna do my best to not repeat too many precepts tonight, but I do have a lot of Jeremiah, and I didn't take the time to kind of cross out if there were any repetitions with the connections, but I'll do my best to take note of it as I read along. But this one is, like I said, for verse 13, Jeremiah 25:10. It says, moreover, I will take from them the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, the sound of the millstones and the light of the lamp. And these essentially, you know, they're basically stating, the Most High is saying to them that he's gonna take away all their joy, everything that they enjoyed. And then verse 14, as I mentioned, I will make you like a top of a rock. You shall be a place for spreading nets, and you shall never be rebuilt, for I, the Adon, have spoken. This is a repeat also of verse 5. It shall be a place for spreading nets in the midst of the sea. So he's just saying it once again, and I will make you like the top of a rock. I don't know. I don't know. Me personally, when I see the top of a rock, I honestly just think of the top of a mountain, but I didn't really see too many connections in that sense there. I hadn't read Isaiah 24, 8 through 9 yet, so that's with verse 13 as well. And it says, the mirth of the tambourine ceases, the noise of the jubilant ends, the joy of the harp ceases. They shall not drink wine with song. Strong drink is bitter to those who drink it. All right, so verse 14. I have Job, Deuteronomy, and a connection in Ezekiel. So Job 12:14 says, if he breaks a thing down, it cannot be rebuilt. If he imprisons a man, there can be no release. Essentially saying here that Tyre would not be rebuilt again once it was torn down. And I did actually look up pictures, and I know, we don't really, I should have included that here too, but anyway, there's pictures that show modern day Tyre, and if you look, you see there, it was never rebuilt. All it is just, see, stone. So it's like a monument now, basically, that people go and look at. Not inhabited. Okay, and also Deuteronomy 13:16. And you shall gather all its plunder into the middle of the street and completely burn with fire the city and all its plunder. For the Most High, your Elohim, it shall be a heap forever. It shall not be built again. Yeah, that's why I was saying that's probably why I didn't include it, Liz. But just as an example, possibility, there may be another area that is the same within other countries. Also Ezekiel 5:13, it says, thus shall my anger be spent, and I will cause my fury to rest upon them, and I will be avenged, and they shall know that I, the Most High, have spoken it in my zeal when I have spent my fury upon them. So once again, just confirming that what he says he's going to do, and it's all for the sake of his name, for his glory, and because of the fact that his patience is worn thin, and especially against these people. So going on to verse 15 says, thus says the Most High, Elohim, to Tyre, will the coastlands not shake at the sounds of your fall, when the wounded cry, when the slaughter is made in the midst of you? And then verse 16 also, speaking of the princes of the surrounding, it says the princes of the sea. That was something interesting here as well. So the princes of the sea, it could also be twofold, of course, princes of the coastland cities, right? But if we think about it in the sense also of the marine kingdom, there could be those princes of that are in the waters, that they'll come down from their throne. And even if you think about it in the sense of the firmament waters, as well. So there was waters above and waters below. We know that the stars are representations of the angels. There's even fallen angels inhabited or entrapped within planets. So it could also be the princes of the sea will come down from their thrones, lay aside their robes, take off their embroidered garments. They will clothe themselves with trembling, and they'll sit on the ground, tremble every moment, and be astonished at you. So as I mentioned before, Tyre, the king of Tyre or the prince of Tyre, is a representation of HaSatan. So how much more fitting would it be for those princes of the sea to come down and see him fall, see his destruction, as a result of what he did, in rebelling against the Most High. So let's look at some of the connections with these precepts. So with verse 15, we have Hebrews 12, 26 through 27, and it says, whose voice then shook the earth, but now has promised, saying, yet once more I shake not only the earth, but also heaven. Now this, yet once more, indicates the removal of those things that are being shaken, as of things that are made, that the things which cannot be shaken may remain. So he's removing the tare from the wheat, as it's being described here in Hebrews, and just cleaning house, as we stated last week as well. While punishing these outward nations, he's essentially just cleaning up, removing all the dross, all the impure people that are rebelling against him. Ezekiel 31:16 says, I made the nations shake at the sound of its fall when I cast it down to hell together with those who descend into the pit, and all the trees of Eden, the choice and best of Lebanon, all that drink water were comforted in the depths of the earth. So this is basically connecting the fact that also the demonic realm, the demons, were passed down into the waters and were comforted in the depths of the earth, because that's where they were meant to be, basically. On verse 16, I have 1 Peter 5:5. Yeah, that's the only one that I have. Likewise, you younger people, submit yourselves to your elders. Yet, yes, all of you, be submissive to one another and be clothed in humility, because the Most High resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And that's the main portion that I wanted to include or highlight here, was the Most High resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. And here we see they will clothe themselves in trembling. We are called as a people to work out our soul salvations with fear and trembling on a daily basis. That is essential to our walk, remaining humble, checking our hearts, resisting pride, because when we give in to pride, that's when our heart begins to be hardened, and not just towards people, but towards the Father as well. So let's not be like this Prince of Tyre who is being addressed here. So now verse 17, I believe it's still addressing the land of Tyre itself, but we already are seeing here, it's kind of like he's also addressing HaSatan here. So once again, let me read it. And they will take up a lamentation for you and say to you, how you have perished, O one inhabited by seafaring men, O renowned city, who was strong at sea, she and her inhabitants, who caused their terror to be on all her inhabitants. Now the coastlands tremble on the day of your fall. Yes, the coastlands by the sea are troubled at your departure. Once again, that everyone will witness this fall is what I got from that. And we have Isaiah 14. And I don't know. I think that we are going to read a portion of Isaiah 14. I don't know if I broke it down. I can't remember if I broke it down throughout the study. I may have, but I did want to read like a portion of it. And I think that'll be once we get to chapter 28. Because Isaiah 14 is the also the chapter in Isaiah that addresses Lucifer. So verse 12 says, how you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning, how you are cut down to the ground, you who weakened the nations. And then, as I mentioned, we are going to have quite a bit of Revelation 18 here tonight. So starting out with verses 16 through 19, and it says, and saying, alas, alas, that great city that was clothed in fine linen, purple and scarlet. It's good.
I washed it.
Good job, puppy. Sorry. That was clothed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in For in 1 hour, such great riches came to nothing. Every shipmaster, all who travel by ship, sailors, and as many as trade on the sea stood at a distance and cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, "What is like this great city?" They threw dust on their head and cried out, weeping and wailing, and saying, "Alas, alas, that great city in which all who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth. For in 1 hour she is made desolate." And this is in reference to Babylon. But if you also see how Tyre is being referenced to this land that sits on water, there's a big connection here with Babylon, she who sits on many waters, and we're gonna continue forward with more connections through this chapter in Revelations as well. Okay, I also have Joel 1:18, and it says, "How the animals groan, the herds of cattle are restless because they have no pasture. Even the flocks of sheep suffer punishment." So this is also connecting, of course, to not it wasn't just the people, but also the animals, everything, all of creation was affected or was going to be affected by the fall of Tyre. Now with verse 18, I know we read it already as well. So we have Isaiah 41:5, and it says, "The coastlands saw it and feared. The ends of the earth were afraid. They drew near and came." So as I mentioned before, the coastlands can also be seen as the scattered nations. And so if you look at it in that sense, you know, more people are coming into the truth every single day. All glory to Abba. I've received messages from different ladies who just this year are, it's their first year not celebrating any of the pagan holidays. They're diving into keeping Torah. They're starting to keep Shabbat. And it's beautiful to see it. And it's because you see the fall of the nations, you see this fallen world, and it makes you wonder why is the Christian church, why aren't they, calling more people to repentance? Why are they continuing to look like the world and celebrate all of these holidays and promise prosperity and all of these different things that they, proclaim in those four walls? People are opening up their eyes and seeing the agenda of HaSatan all throughout the nations. And so I feel like that's a great connection here, that the coastlands are trembling because they're seeing the fall of the nations and it's causing them to repent, um, beginning to work out their soul salvation with fear and trembling. So I don't know. I see the connection there myself. I don't know if you all do, but I just think it's beautiful that we are continuing to see it because of course, a few of us have been at this for a few years now. And that's the goal. That's the purpose of all of this is to be in the truth and to make the truth spread like wildfire, to make keeping Torah something contagious that everybody is, hungry for and curious about and asking questions and wanting to do the right thing. So how much better than to be that light and know that you are being used for this purpose, in the midst of the darkness, in the midst of all of the trouble that everyone else is in. And yes, the holidays, they're a very all-consuming time for people. Everyone's going into debt. They're doing what they think is right and celebrating Messiah, putting him in the midst of this celebration. But I shared something today that it blew my mind, just seeing all of the deities, all of these gods that were born of virgins on December 25th. And so all of these gods are being simultaneously celebrated with, you know, Christmas tree, presents under the tree, and you're supposed to be celebrating your Messiah's birthday, but you're giving gifts to a bunch of people in the process. I mean, I don't know. It kind of seems a little strange, looking from the outside in, and I was there once. I did it, I was one of those that I had to make sure I bought a gift for everyone. I've always prided myself on being, someone who gives thoughtful gifts and stuff like that. But I would put myself in debt in order to be able to do that, in order to be able to say I got a good gift for each person that I love. But it's like, to what end, So it's Liz is saying, I saw a girl do a whole live today to excuse why she chooses this day to celebrate, quote unquote, Jesus. Yeah, it's really sad. It's really sad. I know. I was thinking about that today too. Like that's one thing that I most definitely do not miss. The stress, the wanting to make sure that I had, all of the nice outfits for the gatherings and the gifts and the gift exchanges, being part of the different groups, and it's just, I don't know. Yeah. I don't think that it's what people portray it to be. Um, a lot of people also can be going through really difficult times, and they're like, I just want to get through the holidays. I just want to get through the holidays, and then I'll address all of these terrible things that are going on in my life. But for what, It's just, I don't know. I don't know. And for those who may say, well, we're doing this for Messiah, or oh, we're getting together with our family, is that really a bad thing? Well, if your heavenly Father told you in Leviticus 23 to keep his appointed times because they are his appointed times, then those are the things that you should be doing. Not all of these man-made traditions that have these deep pagan roots that are going to take you to perdition, essentially. There's a lot going on in the chat. Eileen, hi Eileen, welcome back. She said, sad but true, and to think that we were all there and part of that at one point. Thank you, Abba, for taking us out of that. I mean, I totally agree. And that's why, I don't want to ridicule anybody. I know now the truth, and I know that the truth is what sets us free. And learning to keep his appointed times has been such a beautiful, beautiful process that I look forward to it. My children look forward to it. So, it's just being in right standing with our Heavenly Father is paramount, especially in these days that we're living in. Okay, so I went off a little bit on a tangent. Please forgive me. But let's get back into it. I think I read all of the connecting precepts for verse 18. Oh, yes, it was only that one. Okay, so verse 19. Let's go back here. So it says, for thus says the Most High Elohim, when I make you a desolate city like cities that are not inhabited, when I bring the deep upon you and great waters cover you. Verse 20, then I will bring you down with those who descend into the pit to the people of old, and I will make you dwell in the lowest part of the earth, in places desolate from antiquity, with those who go down to the pit, so that you may never be inhabited. And I will establish glory in the land of the living. So if you think about those pictures that I showed you, the desolate place of Tyre, if that was I don't know, let's say the throne of HaSatan, and now it's desolate and he's taken into the pit, or he was taken into the pit, and with those who go down into the pit, so not just him, but his minions, then it makes sense why that land would look desolate today. So some connections with it as well. We have Revelation 17, Daniel 11, and Matthew 8. So Revelation 17, 15 through 16 says, Then he said to me, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. And the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot, make her desolate and naked, eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. Then Daniel 11:40. At the time of the end, the king of the south shall attack him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind with chariots, horsemen, with many ships, and he shall enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. So these two here connect with one another as well. Once again, making the connection of the harlot that sits on the many waters, and just essentially that area that is being addressed. So we also have Matthew 8, 28 through 32. And it says, when he had come to the other side, to the country of Gergesenes, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, there met him 2 demon-possessed men coming out of the tombs, exceedingly fierce, so that no one could pass that way. And suddenly they cried out, saying, What have we to do with you, Messiah, you Son of the Most High? Have you come here to torment us before the time? Now, a good way off from them, there was a herd of many swine feeding. So the demons begged him, saying, If you cast us out, permit us to go away into the herd of swine. And he said to them, Go. So when they had come out, they went into the herd of swine. And suddenly the whole herd of swine ran violently down the steep place into the sea and perished in the water. So the demons were sent to an unclean animal, a pig, to the swine. Well, not a pig, to many, a herd of pigs. And 2, those pigs ran to water. And that's where the demons were essentially released out of the pigs once the pigs died. So they went back into the place where they were originally dwelling. And then I think I read verse 20 also. Yes, and then verse 21, I will make you a terror and you shall be no more. Though you are sought for, you will never be found again, says the Most High. So I'm going to just read the connections for 20 and 21. I have Psalm 27:13, Ezekiel 39:7, Psalm 88, and Numbers 16. So these 4 here for verse 18. So Psalm 27:13 says, I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Most High in the land of the living. And once again, this is essentially giving hope. I will establish glory in the land of the living. So they were sent out under the earth, basically. And so the land would be for his people. Ezekiel 39:7. So I will make my holy name in the midst of my people Israel, and I will not let them profane my holy name anymore. Then the nations shall know that I am the Most High, the Holy One in Israel. Psalm 88:3-6. For my soul is full of troubles, and my life draws near to the grave. I am counted with those who go down to the pit. I am like a man who has no strength, adrift among the dead, like the slain who lie in the grave, whom you remember no more, and who are cut off from your hand. You have laid me in the lowest pit, in darkness, in the depths. So a great connection here in reference to the pit that is being spoken of in verse 20. And then Numbers 16:30-33, it says, But if the Most High creates a new thing, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the pit, then you will understand that these men have rejected the Most High. Now it came to pass, as he finished speaking all these words, that the ground split apart under them, and the earth opened up its mouth and swallowed them up, with their households and all the men with Korah, with all their goods. So they and all those with them went down alive into the pit. The earth closed over them, and they perished from among the assembly. So we see here that this was not the first time that the Most High opened up the ground and swallowed up a people who were rebellious. And so we see that that took place during the time of the wilderness as well. Okay, so also Revelation 18:21 and Jeremiah 51:64, these are in connection with verse 21. So Revelation 18, then a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea, saying, thus with violence the great city Babylon shall be thrown down and shall not be found anymore. Again, like it said here, and you shall be no more, though you are sought for, you will never be found again. Jeremiah 51:64, then you shall say, thus Babylon shall sink and not rise up from the catastrophe that I will bring upon her, and they shall be weary. Thus far are the words of Jeremiah. So just, the prophets before Messiah's time were speaking about these things, and then John had this vision after Messiah's resurrection and ascension into heaven. So just goes to show you once again that this is twofold and speaking of a future judgment as well. So that is chapter 26. We will now go into chapter 27. Anita, are you going to be reading from the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let me see. Let's see where to stop. Well, you can read first. Read through verse 24.
Okay. The word of the Adon came again to me, saying, now, son of man, take up a lamentation for Tyre, and say to Tyre, you who are situated at the entrance of the sea, merchant of the peoples on many coastlands, thus says the Adon Elohim. O Tyre, you have said, I am perfect in beauty. Your borders are in the midst of the seas. Your builders have perfected your beauty. They made all of your planks of fir trees from Shinar. They took a cedar from Lebanon to make you a mast. Of oaks from Bashan, they make your oars. The company of Asherites have inland your planks, with ivory from the coast of Cyprus. Fine embroidered linen from Egypt was what you spread for your sail. Blue and purple from the coast of Elijah was what covered you. Inhabitants of Sidon and Arvad were your oarsmen. Your wise men, O Tyre, were in you. They became your pilots. Elders of Jabal and its wise men were in you to caulk your seams. All the ships of the sea and their oarsmen were in you to market your merchandise. Those from Persia, Lydia, and Libya were in your army as men of war. They hung shield and helmet in you. They gave splendor to you. Men of Arvad, your army were on your walls all around, and the men of Gamad were in your towers. They hung their shields on their walls all around. They made your beauty perfect. Tarshish was your merchant because of your many luxury goods. They gave you silver, iron, tin, and lead for your goods. Javan, Tubal, and Meshach were your traders. They bartered human lives and vessels of bronze for your merchandise. Those from the house of Tagarma traded were your wars with horses, steeds, and mules. The men of Dedan were your traders. Many isles were the market of your hand. They brought you ivory, tusk, and ebony as payment. Syria was your merchant because of the abundance of goods you made. They gave you for your wars emeralds, purple embroidery, fine linen, corals, and rubies. Judah and the lands of Israel were your borders. They traded for your merchandise, sweet of minnith, honey, oil, and balm. Damascus was your merchant because of the abundance of goods you made, because of your many luxury items with the wine of Helbon with the white wool. Dan and Javan paid for your wars. traversing back and forth. Wrought iron, cassia, and cane were among your merchandise. Dedan was your merchant, and sackcloth for writing. Arabia and all the princes of Kedar were your regular merchants. They traded with you in lambs, rams, and goats. The merchants of Sheba and Ramah were your merchants. They traded for your wars the choicest spices, all kinds of precious stones and gold. Haran, Cana, Eden, and merchants of Sheba, Assyria, and Chilmad were your merchants. These were your merchants in choice items, in purple clothes, in embroidered garments, in chests of multicolored apparel, and sturdy woven cords, which were in your marketplace.
Okay, thank you so much. So, again, we see that Tyre has this lament over it because that the land was very prosperous. They had a lot of materials. They provided those materials to the surrounding regions, and that prosperity got to them. That's essentially what is being said here. Tyre was very prideful. They knew that they had it. They knew that they had all of these different yeah, if Solomon was a city. Right, exactly. Like there it's talking about all of the beautiful things that they had, all of the resources, the materials, everything that they were able to provide to these other nations, and even Judah is mentioned here, right? So we know that they were basically a hub of raw materials for people. Also, Tyre is a type of Lucifer. Exactly. Yes. Yes, they grew prideful. They grew prideful. I mean, I don't know if they were prideful all along. Perhaps they were prideful all along, but yes, you see here in these words that they were representing that pride. Right, just like Lucifer. Lucifer started out, and we're gonna see that in chapter 28. He started out as a cherub, as a guard of the throne of the Most High. He was basically, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but he was a defender of the Most High who ended up becoming an adversary. And not an adversary of the Most High, because now he is our adversary. He is the accuser of the brethren, as it states in I believe it's in the book of Job as well. But he was sent down to basically cast out of heaven. But he is still, and I know that there are theories, Lucifer and Satan are not the same, are not one and the same. There's many Satans. And yes, that's true, but there is one that goes into the throne of heaven to make a case against the Most High's people, to accuse and to gain legal access when we are out of covenant with the Most High. So he'll be there and say, okay, well, they did this, and this. So now you have to give me permission to attack their life, basically. Or will you give me permission? Because we know that every situation and circumstance that we face in our lives, the Most High is aware of it and he allows it to take place. And a lot of times it's for our own good, in order to refine us, to remove all of those impurities from our lives, to take us to a state of repentance so that we are able to come back in to his presence and continue walking with him and get back on that straight and narrow path that he has set out for us. So with all that being said, let's go into some connections here. So starting with verse 2, I'm gonna just read verse 2 and 3 again. So as I mentioned, there you see here that it's being spoken that they were a merchant people on many coastlands. They were basically a seaport where all of the different nations would go and gather materials or purchase materials. And because of that, they grew prideful. So starting out with Jeremiah 9 and 10, we have with verse 2, I will take up a weeping and wailing for the mountains, and for the dwelling places of the wilderness a lamentation, because they are burnt up, so that no one can pass through, nor can men hear the voice of the cattle. Both the birds of the heaven and the beasts have fled, they are gone. And this is just a comparison of a lamentation that was being made to Tyre. Amos 5:16. We have with verse 2 as well. Therefore, the Most High of hosts, the Most High says this: there shall be wailing in all streets, and they shall say in all the highways, alas, alas. They shall call the farmer to mourning, and skillful lamenters to wailing. And again, this is just continuing in the theme of what the lamentation looked like. So we also have Jeremiah 9:17-20. And this is one of my favorite passages in Jeremiah. And it says, thus says the Most High of hosts, consider and call for the mourning women that they may come, and send for skillful wailing women that they may come. Let them make haste and take up a wailing for us, that our eyes may run with tears and our eyelids gush with water. For a voice of wailing is heard from Zion. How we are plundered, we are greatly ashamed, because we have forsaken the land, because we have been cast out of our dwellings. Yet hear the word of the Adon, O women, and let your ear receive the word of his mouth. Teach your daughters wailing, and every one her neighbor a lamentation. So this is basically, I'm just trying to make the connection here about how there was a lamentation being taken up for Tyre. And yes, Liz just said it. It's us. This is us in this time that we are in, being in the truth, as I was speaking of earlier, just a few minutes ago, being in the truth, as it states in Ecclesiastes, with more wisdom comes much grief, or comes much sorrow. And we see the things happening all around us. We see people who call themselves believers, who call themselves Christians, doing the practices, the Babylonian practices still. And then even further ahead, our loved ones who are not believers at all, that are rejecting the truth altogether. So there's a level of grief that we feel on a daily basis. And I don't know about you, but 9 times out of 10, when I have that time alone with the Father and I start praying and I really get into like praying and interceding for my loved ones, I begin to weep. I begin to weep. I begin to wail. I'm like crying out to him and just asking him to open up their eyes, and please, Abba, for the sake of your name, for you to be glorified, just take these people out of the darkness that they're in, remove the veils, all these things. This is the lifestyle that we have stepped into as being believers and in the truth. So it's like a deeper level, of course, right? We want to see our loved ones, doing what they're supposed to be doing, living for him, having a heart that is softened, and all the stony areas removed, the veils removed, all the things, right? So we're the ones who are taking up a lamentation. So that was the connection that I was making there. And Liz, we're in the Ruach, you identified it right away. But that just goes to show that's the heart of so many people in these days. And I'm glad that being in the truth has not hardened our hearts to turn away from the people, because there are those who have done that are doing that, that are living by the letter of the law and not the spirit. So the word is not written on their hearts. Or if it is, there has been a hardening of their hearts where they're not bearing that good fruit of love, of patience, of gentleness, faithfulness, kindness, goodness, self-control, all of the fruits of the spirit, that would lead a person to have patience and long suffering towards their loved ones. The meekness, yes. Yes, HaSatan has certainly tried us. And it's all been for his glory, for the Most High's glory, that we have been refined and, just continue pushing forward in all of this. All glory to him. All glory to him. I love him so much. Verse 3, I have Revelation 18, verse 3, and then 11 through 15. So it says, "For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury. And the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, for no one buys their merchandise anymore. Merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen and purple, silk and scarlet, every kind of citron wood, every kind of object of ivory, every kind of object of most precious wood, bronze, iron, and marble, and cinnamon and incense, fragrant oil and frankincense, wine and oil, fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and chariots, and bodies and souls of men. The fruit of your soul longed for has gone from you, and all the things which are rich and splendid have gone from you, and you shall find them no more at all. The merchants of these things who become rich by her will stand at a distance for fear of her torment, weeping and wailing." Doesn't this tie in so well with Ezekiel's vision or prophecy? I mean, I feel like these two chapters essentially go hand in hand, or well, the three chapters, 26, 27, and 28, they all go hand in hand with chapter 18 here of Revelations. Okay, so I also have for verse 5, 1 Kings 5, 1 and 6, and then Songs of Solomon. So let's read this one first. And it says, "Now Hiram, king of Tyre, as I mentioned earlier, sent his servants to Solomon because he had heard that they had anointed him king in place of his father. And for Hiram had always loved David. Now, therefore, command that they cut down cedars for me from Lebanon, and my servants will be with your servants, and I will pay you wages for your servants according to whatever you say. For you know there is none among us who has skill to cut timber like the Sidonians." So we see here that Judah or Jerusalem was making doing business with Tyre for the sake of building the temple. And then we have Song of Solomon 4:8. So if you have read through Songs of Solomon, yes, it's a very romantic book if you look at it from a fleshly sense, but if you look at it in a spiritual sense, it's a type of romance where you are able to see the father's love for Israel. Yes, it's about a bride and a bridegroom. So thinking of ourselves as the bride of Messiah, it's just a beautiful book that shows you just how much he loves you. So Song of Solomon 4:8 says, "Come with me from Lebanon, my spouse, with me from Lebanon. Look from the top of Amana, from the top of Senir and Hermon, from the lion's den, from the mountains of the leopards." So here we're seeing that Lebanon is being seen as yes, he's calling Israel, his bride, to come out away from Lebanon, to come out away from the lion's den, from the mountains of the leopards. Essentially speaking that this place, yes, come out of her, my people, this place is not the place to be. Pulling them away, doing his best to pull his beloved away from the darkness. All right, so we also have for verse 6. So I don't know if I'm gonna read, I don't want to read word for word again, each one, because as we could see throughout all of these scriptures, even from, let's say from 5, no, even from 3 all the way to 24. Yes, it's all similar language. It's all speaking of the different lands, the different cities that did business with them, all of the materials that they had. So let's just read the connections, and I'll let you all know, verse by verse, which ones they connect with. So we have verse 6, Jeremiah 22:20. As well as Zechariah 11:2 and Numbers 21:33. So Jeremiah 22:20 says, "Go up to Lebanon and cry out, and lift up your voice in Bashan. Cry for Abiram, for all your lovers are destroyed." So we see a reference to Bashan, to Lebanon, I believe I didn't see Abiram in this chapter, but these two cities, these two nations were also being mentioned here. And we know Bashan. Oh, I have it here. Let me hold off and I'll read that. So Zechariah 11:2 says, "Wail, O Cyprus, for the cedar has fallen, because the mighty trees are ruined. Wail, O oaks of Bashan, for the thick forest has come down." And then Numbers 21:33, which I was gonna say, and they turned and went up by the way to Bashan. So Og, king of Bashan, went out against them, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. And if you read on in Numbers 21, and I believe I'm not sure if the story ends in 21 or if it goes into chapter 22, but the king of Bashan, Og, was a giant and he was defeated by the Israelites. And so we see that in that defeat, they are this is where the cypress trees, the cedar trees were taken from. So, I'm not sure if Tyre went in and took all of those trees and had them in their land, and that's how they would sell them, or if it was just a matter of, doing business with one another through trading. All right, so moving forward, we also have for verse 7, Jeremiah 10:9, and it says, "Silver is beaten into plates. It is brought from Tarshish, and gold from Uphaz, the work of the craftsman and the hands of the metalsmith. Blue and purple are their clothing. They are all the work of skillful men." So again, we know, as I mentioned earlier, Tyre was known for, well, Tyre and Sidon both were known for the staining, or was it the staining or the dyeing of fabric in the color purple. So that's the reference being made here. Verse 8, we have 2 Chronicles 2, verses 13 to 14, and it says, "And now I have sent a skillful man, endowed with understanding, Hiram, my master craftsman, the son of a woman of the daughters of Dan, and his father was a man of Tyre, skilled to work in gold and silver, bronze and iron, stone and wood, purple and blue, fine linen and crimson, and to make any engraving, and to accomplish any plan which may be given to him, with your skillful men and with the skillful men of my Lord David, your father." So again, another reference here to Hiram being commissioned to help build the temple. Then we have Genesis 10:6 with verse 10, and it says, "The sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan." And this is in reference to just the lineage here. So let me go back just to look. This is making a connection to the bloodlines. So we know, just so that we know that the people of Tyre came from the line of Ham, as well as the Sidonians, which we'll see in a minute too, or well, at the end of the study. Verse 12, we have 1 Kings 10:22, Isaiah 60:9, and Isaiah 66:19. So Isaiah 1 Kings 10:22 says, "For the king had merchant ships at sea with the fleet of Hiram. Once every 3 years, the merchant ships came bringing gold, silver, ivory, apes, and monkeys." So Hiram was also giving offerings, I believe, to Judah in that time as well. Isaiah 60:9 says, "Surely the coastland shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish will come first to bring your sons from afar, their silver and their gold with them, to the name of the Most High your Elohim, and to the Holy One of Israel, because he has glorified you." Goes on to Isaiah 66:19, and it says, "I will set a sign among them, and those among them who escape I will send to the nations, to Tarshish and Pul and Lud, who draw the bow, and to Baal and Javan, to the coastlands afar off, who have not heard my fame nor seen my glory, and they shall declare my glory among the Gentiles." So again, as it's just an ongoing theme that we see here, these coastlands are a huge connection to the scattered nations, to those who may not yet have their eyes open, but the Most High is calling them to repentance. And it will happen through the people who he has already awakened to do his commission and to be fishers of men. Next, we have with verse 13, Joel 3:2-3, and then again, Revelations 18. And I already read this portion of Revelations 18. You can just make a note of it there. Once again, this is just repetition as far as the materials that Tyre had. But Joel 3:2-3 says, I will also gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat, which represents judgment. And I will enter into judgment with them there on account of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations. They have also divided up my land. They have cast lots for my people, have given a boy as payment for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine that they may drink. So that just goes to show you, how far gone the people were. And we see those things happening today, right? With child trafficking, with all kinds of darkness of this age that is taking place. So as usual, nothing new under the sun. All right, so now verses 16-21, I just, I put a bunch of connections here as well. So starting with Judges 10:6, it says, Then the children of Israel did evil against the sight of the Most High, and served the Baals and the Ashtoreths, the gods of Syria, the gods of Sidon, the gods of Moab, the gods of the people of Ammon, the gods of the Philistines, and they forsook the Most High and did not serve him. And this wasn't the beginning of it. They had already been doing this prior, but even after having crossed over the Jordan and stepping into the promised land, they had begun doing this once again. Oh, I hate when that happens. I'm sorry, give me 1 second. Oof, okay. Where was I? Okay, so we were here. All right, so now I know we are going to read this in a few, but I did also include Ezekiel 28:13 and then Ezekiel 26:19 that we previously read. So Ezekiel 28:13 says, You were in Eden, the garden of the Most High. Every precious stone was your covering. The sardius, topaz, and diamond, beryl, onyx, and jasper, sapphire, turquoise, and emerald with gold. The workmanship of your timbrels and pipes was prepared for you on the day you were created. So this is just going to show, once again, all of the beauty that Lucifer had, or HaSatan had, and it's connecting with all of the rubies and the fine merchandise that they had in that land. Ezekiel 26:19, for thus says the Most High Elohim, when I make you a desolate city, like cities that are not inhabited, when I bring the deep upon you and the great waters cover you. You can add verse 20 on there as well of Ezekiel 26, because it completes by saying, then I will bring you down with those who go down to the pit, to the people of long ago. So you can add verse 20 there as well. Then I also have Psalm 48:7. As when you break the ships of Tarshish with an east end. I probably should have included more of this psalm. But this is one of those psalms that is referring to Tarshish, to the coastlands, to the water as well. Proverbs 11:4 says, riches do not profit in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. So this is just a reminder here that when the time comes, none of those things are really going to matter or have any value. Well, I actually went over these were actually for verses 26 through 29. So let's go ahead and finish that part. So these four here, yes, only what we have done for the most high's kingdom is what's going to matter in that day, right? In the day of judgment. So you can make a note, and I'm sorry, Ezekiel 26:19, Psalm 48:7, and Proverbs 11:4, along with the rest. These go with the remaining precepts of the chapter. So 26, I have them with 26 through 29. So we'll get to that again in a minute. Anita, if you can just finish out the chapter, please.
Okay. I stopped at 24. Okay. The ships of Tarshish were carriers of your merchandise. You were filled and very glorious in the midst of the seas. Your oarsmen brought you into many waters, but the east wind broke you in the midst of the seas. Your riches, wares, and merchandise, your mariners and pilots, your caulkers and merchandisers, all your men of war who are in you, and the entire company which is in your midst will fall into the midst of the seas on the day of your ruin. The common land will shake at the sound of the cry of your pilots. All who handle the oar, the mariners, all the pilots of the sea, will come down from their ships and stand on the shore. They will make their voice heard because of you. They will cry bitterly and cast dust on their heads. They will roll about in ashes. They will shave themselves completely bald because of you, gird themselves with sackcloth, and weep for you with bitterness of heart and bitter wailing. In their wailing for you, they will take up a lamentation and lament for you. What city is like Tyre, destroyed in the midst of the sea? When your waves went out by sea, you satisfied many people. You enriched the kings of the earth with your many luxury goods and your merchandise. But you are broken by the seas and the depths of the waters. Your merchandise and the entire company will fall in your midst. All the inhabitants of the isles will be astonished at you. Their kings will be greatly afraid, and their countenance will be troubled. The merchants among the peoples will hiss at you. You will become a horror and be no more forever.
That's heavy. Thank you, Anita. Something that I thought about right now, and I don't have the chapter, but I want to say, let me go to part 1 here. Yes, yes. Just because of the fact that it's speaking so much about the waters, you can definitely see a lot of the marine kingdom symbolism. But it's so many notes and so much scriptures that I have for that study that I was like, I couldn't include everything. But I was trying to find, let's see. Maybe it's chapter. Let's see. I'm trying to find the chapter where the angels are. Oh, yes, it was chapter 15. Okay. So I'm going to read this really quick. And he answered and said to me, and I heard his voice, "Fear not, Enoch, thou righteous man and scribe of righteousness, approach hither and hear my voice. And go, say to the watchers of heaven who have sent thee to intercede for them. You should intercede for men and not men for you. Wherefore have ye left the high, holy, and eternal heaven and lain with women and defiled yourself with the daughters of men, and taken to yourselves wives, and done like the children of the earth, and begotten giants as your sons? And though ye were holy, spiritual, living the eternal life, you'd have defiled yourselves with the blood of women, and have begotten children with the blood of flesh, and as the children of men have lusted after flesh and blood, as those also do who die and perish. Therefore have I given them wives also, that they may impregnate them and beget children by them, that thus nothing might be wanting to them on earth. But you were formerly spiritual, living the eternal life and immortal for all generations of the world. And therefore I have not appointed wives for you, for as the spiritual ones of the heaven, in heaven is their dwelling. And now the giants who are produced from the spirits of flesh shall be called evil spirits upon the earth, and on earth shall be their dwelling. Evil spirits have proceeded from their bodies, because they are born from men, and from the holy watchers is their beginning and primal origin. They shall be evil spirits on earth, and evil spirits shall they be called. So I wanted to read this because it gives that background of how when the fallen angels heard that their children, their offspring would be punished, they began to lament, and they were asking Enoch to pray for their children. And that it reminded me because of here where it says, let's see, they will make their voice heard because of you. They will cry bitterly and cast dust on their heads. They will roll about in ashes. They will shave themselves completely bald because of you, gird themselves up with sackcloth, and weep for you with bitterness of heart and bitter wailing. So where they started out, let's go back to the beginning of Enoch. Or is it? I think it's around here. Where they started out, and Semyaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, let us all swear an oath and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swear they all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. And they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. So they all came to agreement of what they were going to do, of what they were going to do with the children of men, with the women. And now that they saw the consequence of it, there's lamentation, there's regret, there's all of this pain that they are going through. So I don't know, that was like just a quick connection. I didn't even have that written down, but it I don't know. I just saw it reminded me of these passages in the book of Enoch. I feel like the book of Enoch really ties very well with these chapters as well, because obviously it's also speaking of HaSatan here. Okay, so going back to the other connections that I had mentioned earlier, as I had noted these three here, so you can write them down. I also have Revelations 18, 17 through 34, or 24 rather. We haven't read these yet. So it says, for in 1 hour, such great riches came to nothing. Every shipmaster, all who travel by ship, sailors, and as many as trade on the sea stood at a distance and cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what is like this great city? They threw dust on their heads and cried out, weeping and wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city in which all who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth, for in 1 hour she was made desolate. I did read that portion, but let's read on. Verses 20 through 24, it says, rejoice over her, O heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for the Most High has avenged you on her. Then a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea, saying, thus with violence the great city Babylon shall be thrown down and shall not be found any more. The sound of harpists, musicians, flutists, and trumpeters shall not be heard in you any more. No craftsman of any craft shall be found in you any more, and the sound of a millstone shall not be heard in you any more. The light of a lamp shall not shine in you any more, and the voice of bridegroom and bride shall not be heard in you any more. For your merchants were the great men of the earth, for by your sorcery all the nations were deceived. And in her was found the blood of prophets and saints and all who were slain on the earth. Do you guys see the connections now also with those Enoch portions that I read? Like, wow, it's so crazy when you really start digging in and seeing everything, Abba just reveals it and shows how these fallen angels, they had such a big effect on the function of this earth. And with giving all of these secrets, all of the talents that they shared with the children of men, that's how the fall began. It, like as always, from the beginning, and there's nothing new under the sun. And yes, imagine Abba's heart. That's always what breaks me, is when I start thinking about how much pain the Most High must feel. We feel the pain, right? We look at the people that we love and we see them turning away from him, but how much more our creator. Yeah, it's very sad. It's very sad. Anywho, so just two more connections for this chapter. I have verse 31, Isaiah 15:2 says, He has gone up to the temple and Dibon to the high places to weep. Moab will wail over Nebo and over Medeba. On all their heads will be baldness and every beard cut off. And as we read last week in Leviticus, that when they were in mourning, they would shave their heads, wear sackcloth, put dust on their heads. I know that we saw that King David did it too when his son Absalom was killed. So that was a common practice for grief. Ezekiel 26:21 says, and this one is for verse 36, I will make you a terror and you shall be no more, though you are sought for, you will never be found again, says the Most High Elohim. So just a reminder and going back, because these three chapters connect together so well. So with that being said, we're done with chapter 27. Moving along, we're gonna go now to chapter 28. So Liz, if you can read, let me go to the next chapter here. From verses 1 through 10 first to start.
The word of the Adon came to me again, saying, Son of man, say to the prince of Tyre, Thus says the Adon Elohim, because your heart is lifted up and you say, I am a God. I sit in the seat of God in the midst of the seas. Yet you are a man and not a God. Though you set your heart as the heart of a God, behold, you are wiser than Daniel. There is no secret that can be hidden from you. With your wisdom and your understanding, you have gained riches for yourself and gathered gold and silver into your treasuries. By your great wisdom in trade, you have increased your riches, and your heart is lifted up because of your riches. Therefore, thus says the Adon Elohim, because you have set your heart as the heart of a God, behold, therefore I will bring strangers against you, the most terrible of the nations, and they shall draw their swords against the beauty of your wisdom, and defile your splendor. They shall throw you down into the pit, and you shall die the earth of the slain. And you shall die the death of the slain in the midst of the seas. Will you still say before him who slays you, I am a God? But you shall be a man and not a God in the hand of him who slays you. You shall die the death of the uncircumcised by the hand of aliens. For I have spoken, says the Adon Elohim.
Thank you. So let's go to the slides, because I do have another slide here to connect with the king of Tyre. So who is the king of Tyre? So we see that in Ezekiel 28, Ezekiel first mentions the prince of Tyre, who is actually the king. Yes, it does sound a lot like Isaiah 14. And then mentions the king of Tyre, who is the power behind the prince of Tyre. And this analogy of prince-king relationships is what depicts the king of Tyre as referring to HaSatan or Lucifer, whichever of the entities is being addressed here. But we know, of course, once again, that this is, the adversary who wanted to be like the Most High. Tyre sounds like he was a fallen angel. Yes, very possible. Very possible. And not necessarily the main source of how would you say why can't get rid of this thing. Hold on a second. Oh, I need to press the arrow. Like I'm saying, the fact that says you are not a man. Yeah, exactly. That alone shows you it's not necessarily speaking of a person on earth, or perhaps they were, but you see, again, it starts off, say to the prince of Tyre, but it's a proclamation against the king of Tyre. So yeah, there's those connections are there. So let's look at the scriptures. Let me close this out here. All right. So first we have 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 4, and it says, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called the Most High, or that is worshipped, so that he sits as the Most High in the temple of the Most High, showing himself that he is the Adon. This is with, like I said, verse 2. We also have Proverbs 16:18, and it says, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Because again, as we were seeing here, because your heart is lifted up and you say, I am God, I sit in the seat of gods, in the midst of the seas, once again, in the midst of the seas, the marine kingdom where the demonic realm dwells, yet you are a man and not a god, though you set your heart as the heart of a god. Well, let's continue and look at some more connections. We have Isaiah 14 here, as Liz mentioned, very much connects with Isaiah 14. Says, for you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Elohim. I will also sit on the mount of the congregation on the farthest sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. He wanted to be like him, and that's where everything started. I also have with verse 3, Daniel 1:20, because we see a reference here to Daniel, because you are wiser than Daniel. There is no secret that can be hidden from you. And I wasn't sure if it was speaking specifically about the prophet Daniel, but there are connections. If you look at the Amplified, if you look at just any kind of like precept connections, this is one of the verses that is included. And it says, in all matters of wisdom and understanding about which the king examined, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers who were in all his realm. And this is speaking of the prophet Daniel. And that was the beginning of when he was chosen or called to interpret the dreams of the king. And then verse 4, we have Deuteronomy 8:17 and 18, and Ecclesiastes 9:11. So Deuteronomy 8:17, 18 says, then you say in your heart, my power and the might of my hands have gained me this wealth. And you shall remember the Most High your Elohim, for it is he who gives you power to get wealth, that he may establish his covenant, which he swore to your fathers, as it is this day. So of course, this is a very key scripture in making sure that we do not get above or, ahead of ourselves, and that we always give the glory to who the glory is due to, because our provider is the Most High. So we should never think that we have been able to accomplish any of the things that we have without him. Ecclesiastes 9:11, it says, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to men of understanding, nor favor to men of skill, but time and chance happen to them all. So what does this precept tell you? Basically speaking, that no one is void of judgment. There's nobody that is more special than anyone else. Time and chance happen to all of us. We are all flesh. We will all fall. We will all have to face our creator and be judged, and nothing that we have is going to make a difference. And like Yasmin said earlier, the only thing that matters is what we do for him and for his kingdom, how we live for him. I have also for verse 5, Proverbs 11:28, Proverbs 26:12, Job. So let's read a few. 11:28 of Proverbs says, he who trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like foliage. So just keeping up with that same theme. Proverbs 26:12, do you see a man wise in his own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for him. Stay humble, basically. That's so important. And I know that we've all, can you not get in the camera, please? Okay, hold on. I know that we've all faced that in one way or another in this walk, coming to terms with any pride that we were dealing with, in our lives, and having to get to the end of ourselves and be stripped of that. It's being refined daily, but I feel like even, I don't know, I can only speak for myself, but I feel like even before coming into the truth, there may have been a level of pride that I was dealing with that I was ignoring, that I didn't recognize as being pride. So now that's why that refinement and those daily heart checks are so essential to me in my daily life, because I know where I was before and where I don't want to get to ever again. We also have Job 31:24-26. It says, if I have made gold my hope, or said to find gold, you are my confidence, if I have rejoiced because my wealth was great, and because my hand had gained much, if I have observed the sun when it shines, or when the moon moving in brightness. Oh, let me look for the rest of it, because there's more to that. And I'll tell you until what precept to stop. So verse 27 reads, so that my heart was secretly enticed and my hand offered them a kiss of homage, then these also would be sins to be judged, for I would have been unfaithful to the Most High. So you can note Job 31:24-28 for that. And that's the love of money is the root of all evil. That's basically what the summary of this passage is too. And Yasmin said, I'm thinking of the house on the sand and the one on the rock. What's your foundation? Exactly. Who are you depending on? And Matthew 6 is a great chapter in connection with that too. Always put trust in the Most High.
Sorry. I was gonna share something. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you were talking how like love is the root of all evil, yesterday like I was like I feel like Ava brought me to read an epistle. I forgot which one it was, but it was talking about like not believing those that talk about the prosperity gospel. And one of the scriptures that really got to me was like being content, and like being content with what you have. And I feel like that's something that I've been learning in this season, to be content with everything that I have. But it's not easy, because when you come from a place that maybe you had a lot, or you had a lot of things that you wanted, and it gets taken all away, and it's like, wow, your real fruit comes out. Like, what fruits are you bearing? Like, how do you feel when things are not always good? And I feel like it's sometimes easier said than done, but I feel like um the fruit that we're gonna bear after these things get taken away, it's like way better
Amazing.
than rather than having it all and having abundance, you know. It's essentially, you know, pride is gonna step in. I just wanted to say that.
Amen, hermana. No, that's good. That's really good because it's so true, honestly. We we set our eyes on the wrong things sometimes because we see the world around us, and social media is really influential in that way. And sometimes we don't even realize it. And like there's that competition and comparison, those traps, those entanglements that we can get caught up in. The same as like what we were speaking of earlier too with the pagan holidays and just wanting to, keep up with the Joneses and do everything that everybody else is doing. Um, I went I like just seeing, like I saw this huge banner on somebody's garage door that said Merry Christmas. Like a huge, like literally, garage doors, a two-car garage door. Literally the whole door covered with a banner. And it's like, for what? Like why can't you give that kind of glory to the Most High? Like he deserves that kind of glory. He deserves that kind of attention. Not a freaking, sorry. I just it hit it me choca. Like I just, exactly, it doesn't even look cute. It's like you're making your house look ugly by doing that. But yeah. I just can't wait for this one to be over. Okay, so continuing, um, verse 6, therefore the most high, this is what the Most High says, because you think you are wise, as wise as a god. Then verse 7, I'm going to bring foreigners against you, the most ruthless of nations. They will draw their swords against your beauty and wisdom and pierce your shining splendor. So let's read some of these connections. We have verse 6 connecting with Job 49 through 12, and then Exodus 9:17. So Job 40 says, have you an arm like the Most High? Or can you thunder with a voice like his? Then adorn yourself with majesty and splendor and array yourself with glory and beauty. Disperse the rage of your wrath. Look on everyone who is proud and humble him. Look on everyone who is proud and bring him low. Tread down the wicked in their place. Exodus 9:17, as yet you exalt yourself against my people in that you will not let them go. And this was Moses speaking to the Pharaoh, who also was very prideful, right? Very prideful, exalting himself and believing that he was a god. I remember I don't know if you guys have seen, I've mentioned this to other people before, but I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Prince of Egypt. It's that cartoon movie about Moses, about the Exodus. Um, I remember the Pharaoh in that movie, Ramses, who was Moses's cousin or brother or whatever, adopted. Um, and he becomes the Pharaoh once Moses comes back to Egypt. He tells him, I'm a god. I am like the morning star, like exalting himself and showing Moses, look at all of the things that I've had. Look at all the things that I have, and look at all that I've done in this kingdom, in this empire that I have created. So, we can see how the pharaohs of Egypt were very prideful. They had a lot of wealth, and that got to their heads. Um, there was no credit, no glory, no homage to the Most High at all. So we also see in Daniel 7:7 connecting with verse 7. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all of the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So this one is connecting, like I said, with verse 7. So essentially, pointing out one of the nations or the beasts that would be attacking or that will be attacking in the last days. I feel like even like nations, as it says in the word, nation will rise up against nation, even the evil nations. Some may not be, in like alliances together, but rather going against one another in the destruction of the earth. All right, so we have now verse 8 and verse 9. Yeah, verse 8 and verse 9. 1 Corinthians 15:54 says, when this corruptible has put on incorruption, and this mortal has put on immortality, then shall be brought to pass the saying that is written, death is swallowed up in victory. So we see, they shall throw you down into the pit, and you shall die the death of the slain in the midst of the seas. Will you still say before him who slays you, I am God? But you shall be a man and not a God in the hand of him who slays you. You shall die the death of the uncircumcised by the hand of aliens, for I have spoken, says the Most High Elohim. So this is also just speaking of the righteous, what is going to happen to the righteous. But as it is written, death is swallowed up in victory, and that is what is going to be the outcome for the unrighteous. We also have Isaiah 25:8. It says, he will swallow up death forever, and the Most High Elohim will wipe away tears from all faces. The rebuke of his people he will take away from all the earth, for the Most High has spoken. So this is a message of hope for those who stay constant and steadfast, connected to him and living for him. For verse 9, we have Daniel 4:31 through 32. While the word was still in the king's mouth, a voice fell from heaven. King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken, the kingdom has departed from you, and they shall drive you from men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. They shall make you eat grass like oxen, and 7 times shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules in the kingdom of men and gives it to whomever he chooses. So we know that this did take place to Nebuchadnezzar, to King Nebuchadnezzar, to humble him. And he was restored after this, but I believe also it was an example or a representation of what would happen to HaSatan. Then we also have Daniel 5:23 through 30, and it says, and you have lifted yourself up against the Most High of heaven. They have brought the vessels of his house before you and your lords, your wives, and your concubines have drunk wine from them. And this is addressing to Belshazzar, the son of Nebuchadnezzar. And you have praised the gods of silver and gold, bronze and iron, wood and stone, which do not see or hear or know. And the God and the Most High, who holds your breath in his hands and owns all your ways, you have not glorified. Then the fingers of the hand were sent from him, and this writing was written. And this is the inscription that was written: Mene, Mene, Tekel, Upharsin. This is the interpretation of each word. Mene, God has numbered your kingdom and finished it. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Peres, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and Persians. Then Belshazzar gave the command, and they clothed Daniel with purple and put a chain of gold around his neck, and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom. That very night, Belshazzar, king of the Chaldeans, was slain. All right. Then with verse 10, we have John 8:24. And it says, therefore I said to you that you will die in your sins, for if you do not believe that I am he, you will die in your sins. So all of these connect with one another. These are both Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar stories, I believe, are foreshadowing of future events as well. So ultimately we see here what our Messiah was saying, so that we will die. Those who remain in sin will die in their sins. We also see in Acts 7:51, you stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears, you always resist the Holy Spirit as your fathers did, so do you. History repeating itself and nothing new under the sun. Leviticus 26:41, and it says, and that I also have walked contrary to them and have brought them into the land of their enemies, if their uncircumcised hearts are humbled and they accept their guilt. So Leviticus 26 is also, as in Deuteronomy 28, the chapter about the blessings and the curses of obedience and disobedience. So this is in reference to, the punishment that the Israelites would receive, or the people would receive, for not keeping his commandments and going after other gods. Then we also have Jeremiah 9:25-26, and it says, behold, the days are coming, says the Adon, that I will punish all who are circumcised with the uncircumcised, Egypt, Judah, Edom, the people of Ammon, Moab, and all who are in the farthest corners, who dwell in the wilderness. For all these nations are uncircumcised, and all the house of Israel are uncircumcised in the heart. So again, as we've spoken of before, this is not a matter of heritage, of bloodline, it's a matter of the heart. So if there is any scattered people of these nations who choose to turn their hearts over to the Most High, if there is natural born branches who choose to turn their hearts over to, who choose to turn their hearts over to the Most High, they shall be saved. But those who are uncircumcised and uncircumcised in heart, they will be punished. So with that being said, we can go back to the reading. So Liz, you can read 11-19 now.
Moreover, the word of the Adon came to me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation for the king of Tyre, and say to him, Thus says the Adon Elohim, you were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of the Most High. Every precious stone was your covering, the sardius, topaz, and diamond, beryl, onyx, and jasper, sapphire, turquoise, and emerald with gold. The workmanship of your timbrels and pipes was prepared for you on the day you were created. You were the anointed cherub who covers. I established you. You were on the holy mountain of the Most High. You walked back and forth in the midst of fiery stones. You were perfect in your ways from the day you were created, till iniquity was found in you. By the abundance of your trading, you became filled with violence within, and you sinned. Therefore, I cast you as a profane thing out of the mountain of the Most High, and I destroyed you, O covering cherub, from the midst of the fiery stones. Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. I cast you to the ground. I laid you before kings, that they might gaze at you. You defiled your sanctuaries by the multitude of your iniquities, by the iniquity of your trading. Therefore I brought fire from your midst. I devoured you, and I turned you to ashes upon the earth, in the sight of all who saw you. All who knew you among the peoples are astonished at you. You have become a horror, and shall be no more forever.
So this right here, thank you, Liz. This right here is absolutely speaking about the king of Tyre, who is Lucifer, HaSatan. One thing I wanted to point out, and has always stood out to me too, is the 12 stones of the breastplate of the priest. Well, there are 12 stones, whereas here we only count 9. Why would that be? I'm not 100% sure. I don't have the answer to that. It does stand out to me that there's the difference. And Liz just pointed out that a diamond is included here, so it's actually 8 stones that were from the actual breastplate, and then a diamond, and then diamonds also included there. So yeah, so let's go ahead and read some connections here. So we start off with verse 12. You were the seal of perfection. No, I don't believe that there was. I don't believe diamonds were. I think I have the, do I have it? Yes, I have the precept in Exodus that speaks about the stone. So we'll go to that in a minute. All right, so James 3:13 through 18 says, "Who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show by good conduct that his works are done in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter envy and self-seeking in your hearts, do not boast and lie against the truth. This wisdom does not descend from above, but is earthly, sensual, demonic. For where envy and self-seeking exists, confusion and every evil thing are there. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. Now the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace." So this is just in reference to he was a seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. His start was good. He had a positive start. Then we have Ezekiel 26:17, and it says, "And they shall take up a lamentation for you and say to you, how you have perished, O one inhabited by seafaring men, O renowned city who was strong at sea, she and her inhabitants, who caused their terror to be on all her inhabitants." So of course, we already read this earlier, but just wanted to bring it back in because that passage or that portion of Ezekiel 26 is very similar to this portion in 28. Okay, now for verses, what do I have written here? Verses 13 through 16, we have Revelation 21:19 through 20. And this is speaking of about New Jerusalem. So we have the foundations of the wall of the city were adorned with all kinds of precious stones. So we have 12 here. Liz, we are just covering after this portion on Tyre. No, I'm gonna continue to Sidon. Sidon is short. It's yeah, it's 6 verses. So I have just a few connections for it. All right, so Revelation 21:19 through 20, the foundations of the wall of the city were adorned with all kinds of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third chalcedony, the fourth emerald, the fifth sardony, the sixth sardius, the seventh chrysolite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, chrysoprase, and so on. So you see, as Liz pointed out, the diamond is not included here, and there's 12 here, whereas there were 8 included plus the diamond, 9 on when referring to HaSatan. We also have Exodus 39. I believe actually that this was supposed to be 10 through 12. That would also make a comparison to the same stones that are in New Jerusalem, were the stones on the breastplate of the priest. So I said that I wanted to read Isaiah 14:9 through 19, but you can write it down as the connection because it's not verbatim, but very similar to this portion of Ezekiel 28. So Isaiah 14:9 through 19. I know that we read, I think, verses 13 and 14 out of this chapter as well. We also have, Enoch 24 I wanted to read. And now I'm seeing the time list, so I understand why you're asking that question. I can always leave Sidon for the next study once we pick back up with the rest of the nations. Okay, 10 through 13. Yeah, I know, but we've already been, I mean, over 2 hours, I'm sure, once I look at the recording. Okay, so let me read Enoch 24. And it says, "And from thence I went to another place on earth, and he showed me a mountain range of fire which burnt day and night." And this is with 14 and 15, by the way. And I went beyond it and saw 7 magnificent mountains, all differing each from the other, and the stones thereof were magnificent and beautiful, magnificent as a whole, of glorious appearance and fair exterior. 3 towards the east, one found on the other, and 3 towards the south, one upon the other, and deep rough ravines, no one of which joined with any other. And the 7th mountain was in the midst of these, and it excelled them in height, resembling the seat of a throne, and fragrant trees encircled the throne, and amongst them was a tree such as I had never yet smelt, neither was any amongst them, nor were others like it. It had a fragrance beyond all fragrance, and its leaves and blooms and wood wither not forever, and its fruit is beautiful, and its fruit resembles the dates of a palm. Then I said, how beautiful is this tree and fragrant, and its leaves are fair, and its blooms very delightful in appearance. Then answered Michael, one of the holy and honored angels who was with me and was their leader. Okay, well, I'm not going to read on, but we see here the stones, the mountains. This is basically where HaSatan dwelt. He was in the midst of Eden with the Most High, where his throne was, and he fell from there. He was kicked out of there. He's an idiot. Can you imagine? Ah, qué pena. Qué pena. Pendejo. Yeah, pretty much. All right, so continuing. 2 Peter 2:4 says, for if the Most High did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved for judgment. I believe verse 5 goes on to say, how much more, the people who here now who are speaking against it. That's basically like saying dummy. That's what pendejo is, like dummy, weakling, something like that. But you're moron, yeah, that too. All right, and then Genesis 3:14-15. So the Most High Elohim said to the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed more than all cattle, and more than every beast of the field. On your belly you shall go, and you shall eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. And if we look back again at the precept in, or the chapter in Enoch, that tree was Messiah. So again, and the tree that was in the Garden of Eden too, we can look at it the same way. That was our Messiah, and he is known also as the one who would bruise the serpent's head, and the serpent would bruise his heel. We also have now for verses 17-19, Romans 1:22-25, and it says, professing to be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of the incorruptible Elohim into an image made like corruptible man, and birds and four-footed animals and creeping things. Therefore, the Elohim also gave them up to uncleanness in the lust of their hearts, to dishonor their bodies among themselves, who exchanged the truth of the Elohim for a lie, and worshipped and served the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. So we see, continuing on, that there is there's punishment for those who, although we were, he made into the image, made like corruptible man, we were made to worship him and only him, and not give in to the lust of our hearts or dishonoring our bodies or anything of that nature. But that came in from the Garden of Eden from the beginning. And then lastly, Luke. Oh no, I have Luke and then this Revelation precept. So Luke 14:11 says, for whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. And Revelation 18:8, therefore her plagues will come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she will be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Elohim who judges her. And that is the end of this portion right here. Yes, exactly. He doesn't play. He is not playing. He is the Romans precept, Romans 1, verses 20 through to 25. Yeah. So yeah, I do have the connections here for the rest of the chapter, but it is already late, so we'll just pause here. We'll resume with the rest of chapter 28 on the next study. It does look like we will probably have 2 more weeks in these nations. I'm excited to get past it and then go into like the restoration of Israel, Ezekiel's renewal as a watchman, the valley of the dry bones, all of the beautiful passages where the Most High is speaking to Israel once again and restoring his people, restoring his temple. So with that being said, thank you all for joining once again. And as always, I pray that this has been edifying to you and giving you something to meditate on so that you continue to seek the Most High with all of your heart and allow his word to wash you and be written between the frontlets of your eyes on your right hand so that you can think on it and that your actions would match what is in your heart towards him. Shalom. Have a great rest of your evening.